The rise and fall of the Ku Klux Klan. The rise and fall of the Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK, was in three major waves. Each wave related to a major social change in the U.S. It was founded in 1865 in Tennessee by Confederate officers after the Civil War. These former officers wanted to restore white supremacy and were especially offended by black voting rights and political power. In the early KKK used lynchings, beatings, and intimidation to try and fight against the black Americans. They gained real political influence in the southern states. It was started by 6 former Confederate officers and was originally framed as a social or fraternal club. They came from the Greek word kailos, which meant circle. The first real drop-off of the KKK was because the federal government intervened with the Enforcement Acts in 1870. President Ulysses S. Grant used the Army and federal prosecutions to discourage the offensive actions. Due to this, the Klan dispersed and largely collapsed in the mid-1870s. White supremacy power still persisted, but through the Jim Crow laws. The laws were to make it hard for black Americans to vote. The examples are poll taxes, where you had to pay to vote, literacy tests, often unfair or impossible, and grandfather clauses, where you could only vote if your grandfather had voted. The Ku Klux Klan spread across the United States between 1915 and 1940. They established chapters in all 50 states with an estimated membership of between 2 million and 8 million. The second rise of the KKK was also fueled by, in large part, the 1915 film The Birth of a Nation, which was a fictional and highly racist depiction of the Reconstruction that portrays the first KKK. And they were portrayed as the saviors of white America. The fall this time was due to internal corruption, scandals, and violence. Notably, the 1925 rape/murder conviction of Indiana Klan leader D.C. Stepson. Public backlash and media exposure also didn't help. Economic and cultural changes of the late 1920s played a huge part. Reactions to civil rights was the next rise in 1950s and the 1970s. They emerged because of desegregation and Brown versus Board of Education and the civil rights movement in general. This time it was different. They formed smaller, more spread out groups, and they were responsible for bombings, murders, and imitation, especially in the South. Aggressive FBI infiltration, prosecutions, and surveillance was ultimately the fall of the KKK. Civil rights laws in 1964 to 1965 reduced political space for the Klan, and also internal splits and loss of legitimacy were the ultimate end of the KKK. Today, it exists in small, fragmented groups with limited influence and competes with newer extremist movements. It is widely condemned by society and closely monitored by law enforcement.